Welcome in. My name's Jason Priester, alongside my cohort here, Ashby Mixon. Second edition of Rounding the Bases. Appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. How you doing, Miss Ashby?
I'm doing great, JP. How are you? Are you back adjusted to not being in Texas?
It took me 2 days, but yes, I'm finally there.
That one
What?
hour jet lag.
Yeah, it was mostly just about being tired. It was, man, it was well worth it, but it was a long day getting back.
I'm sure. That's a little bit of a haul. That's a lot of states to cover.
Yeah, it was a long day Monday. I'll just leave it at that. But make no mistake, it was well worth the trip. Before we dive in too deep, want to thank our sponsor, Mission Roofing. Go-to company for all your residential roofing needs in the upstate of South Carolina. Whether it's a small repair, full roof replacement, or insurance restoration, Mission Roofing will provide a solution. Check out their Facebook page or call or text 864-419-8173 for all your roofing inquiries. The number scrolling across the bottom of the screen. We appreciate those guys for sponsoring us. You know, it's always, they help us do this each and every week, so we very much appreciate it. But yeah, speaking of Texas, I think I know I said 2-1. I think you said 2-1, if I'm remembering right. Eh,
Well, I said that 3-0 was possible. I did. I didn't commit to it. But 2-1, you were right on it. You called it. Here we are.
I kind of look at it like this, and I thought I saw a lot of overreactions to Sunday's run rule loss. You go into every weekend series wanting to win 2 out of 3. That's kind of the goal. If you get a sweep, that's great, man. That's just gravy. That's a cherry on top. But 2 out of 3, that's what you want to do. If you can win 2 out of 3 pretty much every series throughout the season, you're gonna find yourself having had a really good season. I know there's a lot of people that didn't like the way the weekend ended. Um, but I think there are some outliers there. We can dive into that in a minute, but right out the gate, they get down, come back, show a lot of grittiness in that one, and the win over Oklahoma State, then just kind of beat down Arizona before what happened on Sunday. And in that first game, you do that without getting what you're accustomed to getting from Aiden Knock. He strikes out the first 6 hitters, and then he gets squeezed a little bit. Probably had one of those guys struck out. It should have been out of that inning, but ends up walking the guy, and he ends up giving a home run. Of a home run, actually gave up 2 before he was done. Not the typical performance we're accustomed to seeing from Aiden Knock, but still found a way to win and coming back from down 4-1 to do it.
Absolutely. I think when you have a day where Aiden Kanak is not himself completely, and we say that, and he started off the game with 6 strikeouts, but when you have a day where he's not at his very best, and a day where a Cam Canarella is not giving you a ton of production on the offensive side, and you still find a way to come back and win, I think that that bodes really well for the rest of the season and the depth of this team and how they're going to be able to find ways to win without their very best performance from everybody.
Yeah, Canarella was also 0 for 4 that day. He had a very
Yeah.
frustrating day. You could see it in his body language, in a couple of those at bats, but you don't get what you're accustomed to getting from Canuck. Canarella goes 0 for. He does get on base once and score a run, but like you said, not get what you're used to getting from a guy like that. And they still found a way to win. Not really a whole lot of drama in the Saturday game. I thought Ethan Darden was fantastic. Thought the bullpen was really good on Saturday. It, it, I think if they can get a couple guys healthy, I think this pitching staff is going to be a strength. It sucks to lose a guy like Dane Moeller, a guy who, I think we all think he was probably going to be the Sunday starter. Then LeGuernick goes in and gets kind of hit around some Sunday. Kind of thought he looked a little nervous at times to me. Maybe the moment was a little bit too big for him. Thought he got squeezed a couple of times too. Got a hit 0-2, walked the guy, gave up a couple home runs after walks. And when you're giving up walks, that kind of leads to disaster. And he kind of got himself into trouble early.
For sure. And I think that you're talking about the moment being big, and that's a big time moment that most people don't have as their first go at it. It's your first game of the season against a really good, really experienced team. And I think when you already start struggling from the beginning, when you don't have that kind of experience, it is probably hard mentally to reel that back in, you know? And I think you give him another game, another chance, I don't think he looks the same at all. I think it would be a totally different situation, and I think we'll see a lot more of him.
Yeah, I thought he got a little flustered maybe when he
Yeah,
was getting squeezed, and it kind of looked like and this is just based off me watching, obviously. I thought maybe he went to this mindset of, I'm just going to beat you. Here it is. If you can hit it, hit it. And they did. Wasn't a lot of movement on some of them balls. He kind of left them right up in the sweet spot of the plate. But like you said, he's going to get another opportunity. He's going to start again on Sunday in the last game of the Clemson Invitational, and we'll hit on that in a minute. But, there were some bright spots outside of what happened on Sunday. There were some bright spots from that pitching staff. You go back to that Friday game, the bullpen pitched 5 innings, gave up 1 run. Lucas Malstead was lights out over the final 2 innings, struck out 2 guys, did not allow a hit. Then you go to Saturday, and it's kind of the same thing. Titsworth does give up a run. Chance Fitzgerald got lit up, make no mistake, but Titsworth, he gives up a run in 2 innings, and when Arizona looked to be gaining some momentum, they turn to Reed Garris. He comes in and strikes out the first 2 hitters he faces, pitches a perfect 2 innings, struck out 3, and then Joe Allen pitched the final inning and didn't allow a hit or a run. It wasn't really until Sunday that they ran into some trouble.
I was very impressed by the whole pitching staff on Friday and Saturday. I think the guys that we thought were gonna come in and have a chance to really play well and, shut down momentum, I think they really did, and I think that's why it's so great to have somebody like a Reed Garris that's played a lot and pitched a lot of innings and was able to kinda stifle, that run that they had going on, so I think that was great. Of what you saw and of the people you saw, who do you think is gonna get a chance to be the 4th starter this coming weekend?
That is something I have tossed around in my mind, and I can't really decide on it. I think you need a guy like McGovern in the bullpen. I just don't know that that's the guy you put in the rotation. He's a guy that can come in and give you multiple innings in relief. He can pitch on more than one day on a weekend. We just saw it last weekend. He pitched in 2 of the 3 games. I think he pitched a total of 3 innings, maybe 4. I can't remember, 3 or 4. I don't know that you take a guy like Malstead out of the bullpen to start a game because you want him on the back end. Joe Allen's a guy that started games in the past. Maybe he's a guy that gets a shot. Titsworth is I think he started a game or 2 last year, if I'm remembering right. I don't know. What that me and you talked a little bit about this last night. What's your opinion on that? Who you think might get a shot?
I agree that McGovern is really good coming out of the bullpen. I think he's somebody that is great one time through the order, maybe a couple times, and is gonna get outs. He is. He's proven that. He proved that last year, I think, in the regional, and has proven that in the first weekend. So I think maybe somebody like a Joe Allen or Nathan Dvorsky looked really great this past weekend too. Was really solid. I don't know that he gave up a hit. Um, I was wondering if he is somebody that could get a look at that. That's gonna be an interesting one to keep an eye on, I think.
Yeah, no, Dvorsky's another guy that can pitch multiple days for you in a weekend. He pitched the inning Friday, pitched the inning Sunday, no hits, no runs, 2 perfect innings. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I'm leaning towards Joe Allen.
Okay.
He started some games for him in the past. And that's just me throwing a name out there. I have no kind of intel to back that up. Let's just be clear about that off the top.
And I think they've talked about this offseason too, him adding another pitch that Bakich said has completely changed, his game. And so when you have that, and he was really, really good this past weekend, I think that puts you in a spot to be a starter.
Yeah, he pitched the 1 inning on Saturday. He did walk one guy, but I think I want to say they ended up getting a double play out of that because he only faced a minimum. Also had a strikeout, but yeah, I'm gonna ride with Joe Allen. That would be my guess. And yeah, I'm like you. I've heard he's added another pitch, and I heard he had a really good fall and a really good preseason. And he's got some experience, so he's been there. He's kind of done that. He's got several starts under his belt. I could definitely see him going that route. So I kind of mentioned it a minute ago about some overreactions to Sunday.
There's always going to be overreactions.
First and foremost is baseball. You're going to get beat. It is the ultimate sport of failure, and it's all about getting yourself up and how you respond. And no team's going undefeated. If you play it long enough, you're going to get your teeth kicked in a few times. I kind of, the way that game played out, and with some of the guys that are kind of battling back from injuries that are right there, not quite ready to go last weekend, I thought it felt to me like the coaching staff did some experimenting in that game with a couple of guys that we saw a guy or two that we might not see much of the rest of the way. And even Eric Bakich said after the game, we wanted to get some younger guys an opportunity and see what they would do and get their feet wet. And there's a few of them that now have had an opportunity. Didn't quite go so well for them, but you got them out there. They pitched in a big league park, got that exposure, got that experience. I'm not too worried about the bullpen and the pitching depth, assuming they could get, a couple of guys back healthy that they think they're going to get back before conference play, and nobody else gets hurt. I think the pitching's going to be fine. You're going to start seeing starters go deeper into games. You won't have to rely on the bullpen as heavily as you did this weekend. Do you kind of see that playing out differently or maybe similar to that?
No, I agree. I think having your first college baseball experience being in that environment, I don't think you're going to get anybody's best as a freshman. I really don't. And I think you saw guys that are going to end up being really good. And they have talked a lot about what a great fall they had. Guys like Dion Brown, people like that. And I think it's going to be interesting to see the next time that they do get an opportunity. And they saw them experimenting, not just with pitchers, but I think with a lot of different people. Like you had a Jay Dillard coming in for an at bat, and you're working Jack Crichton back in from injury. So I think they decided, and it was pretty apparent that they were going to try out a lot of things on the pitching side and on the hitting side. And it was pretty clear that we're just trying things. And I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see if they do more of that this weekend or if it's more set in stone. What do you think? Do you think kind of they have a lineup set in stone at this point? How long do you think it will take to kind of nail that down?
I think we're going to still see some mixing and matching. You've got it'll be. I'm kind of anxious to see how Jack Crichton fits in once he gets fully back. Because you got and how they rotate Tristan Becerra and Colin Priest, because all those guys can't play every day. There's just not enough spots in the field. So I do think we're going to still see some mixing and matching. I remember I was told the other day that Jack Leggett used to say that the first 20 games are, figuring out who fits where and who does what best. And then the final 20 games are getting those guys ready, for the postseason. So I do still think we're going to see some more, let's just say, experimentation at some spots. But I tell you what I did like. After starting into 3-hole Friday, they moved Dominic Listy into the lead-up spot. And, man, he was outstanding all weekend long. He was a spark plug. He just gets on base. He just sets the table for the guys behind him. And of those transfers that they added so far, he's been the biggest impact guy. Small sample size, but so far he's been the hottest at the plate.
I completely agree. I think putting him at the leadoff spot was a great move because he's gonna get on base, and also it opens up people like moving Cam Cannarella to the 3 hole. He's gonna now have more RBI opportunities, and he also has more power than a Dom Listy, and so you're setting yourself up really well there. But I think, you're talking about him making a big impact. I think you have to talk about a Josh Pano, who also moved around. I think he was 6th in the order the first day, and then they moved him up to the 4 hole, and I thought he was outstanding too. I thought he was outstanding at third base, and he's also has potential to be a spark plug, I think.
His defense was absolutely superb. And yeah, they opened him in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hole, like you said, and then moved him up for the final 2 games. But his defense over there at the hot spot was just superb. Now he had a couple
Absolutely.
of throws that were that were a little off the mark, and he got bailed out by Luke Gaffney a couple of times over there. But after he, that was early Friday, Saturday. By Sunday, he had settled in nicely. Man, he made some really good plays over there. They are going to benefit mightily, not just from his bat, but from his defense over there at third. It's been kind of well documented that Eric Bakich killed it in the portal. Pano's one of those guys. Listy, Colin Priest, the Luke Gafferty. Am I remembering that right? He was outstanding at first, although he's off to a little bit of slow start at the plate. One thing I was surprised Colin Priest wasn't in the lineup day one.
I was too. I thought he was gonna be DH day 1. I thought Tristan Bissetta was in the outfield. So that was a surprise. But like you said, they had a lot of different ideas that I think they wanted to work through. Do you like a Colin Priest DHing? Do you like a Tristan Bissetta in the outfield? Where do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I like I like Priest DHing because I think Gaffney's the better defender at first base. Um, I heard that Tristan McClatty was just outstanding in the fall and in the preseason. I know a lot of people were surprised to see him start 2 games this weekend, but he's kind of earned those opportunities. If you talk to some people around there, um, of those guys, I think he's probably the better defender out there because I don't know that Bacetta's going to give you a lot at the plate, but I don't know about he's not nobody's going to call him a top notch defender out there in the outfield, and not a knock on him, just not all guys are. I know I wasn't. um, so I'm kind of curious to see how they handle that moving forward. How they flip flop Bacetta and McClatty and Priest and who plays on what days and how many days, because there's only so many at bats to go around, and I think you got more than 9 or 10 guys probably that have earned opportunities. So that is going to be a challenge for Eric Bakich as he moves forward.
And he said that for since the fall, the issue is that there's, 14 guys that could step in right now and play as needed and are worthy of being on the field. Um, that's gonna be interesting, and working a Jack Crichton back into the mix too, who was really a great asset last year, really huge in that team. I'm interested to see how that works as well, and I agree. I think we're not gonna have a clear picture of that probably till after the South Carolina series, probably later than that.
I didn't even mention Crichton. He's another one you got to figure out a way to get him in there somehow. Sometimes,
Right.
but who do you take out? You absolutely don't take out Listy. And
Absolutely not.
I'm just saying that because when I was at the intra squads I was at, Crichton was playing in left field, but obviously we've seen him play right field, first base. You can move him around, and that's a guy that Bakich has continuously talked up, and they're really high on him. He showed a lot of flashes last year. That again, that is going to be a challenge. I think I said it last week. I don't envy Eric Bakich when he has to sit down and write up that lineup card every day. But it does sound like he's got a team full of players that have kind of fully bought in, and it's all about the team, and you don't have a lot of selfish egos in the way that are going to get in the way of trying to, make a deep run here.
Absolutely. I think they've all bought into that. That being said, now that we've talked about how they're so unified, who was your MVP of the week, if you had to say one?
Oh, Dominic Listy, he he's mine for sure. He was better than I even expected, and I had high expectations for him coming into the season. He was 1 for 2 on Friday. Then
I
he
think he
comes out
finished
and
5 for 9.
yep, he was 3 for 5 on Saturday with 4 RBIs. And then he comes back on Sunday, he's 1 for 2, and he had 2 of those runs driven in. I mean, he didn't do anything all weekend but produce. And when you got a guy like that in the leadoff spot, it just it just helps everybody in the middle of the order tremendously. You got somebody on base you can drive in, and um, he was a catalyst for that offense this weekend. I wrote something yesterday calling him the spark plug because that's exactly what he was.
Absolutely. And he also, this wasn't just him, this was a lot of guys this weekend, but had some great at bats, long at bats, where it was him versus the pitcher, and they went on, it felt like, for 10 minutes, and he found a way to get on base. In that kind of competitive situation, I don't think you usually see this early in the season, people battling like that. That's something that you start seeing in April, May.
I thought the plate discipline was really good. Um,
Agreed.
and one of the outliers of the weekend or anomalies of the weekend, not a single home run. Um, I've had conversations with a couple of people that they find that concerning. Um, I don't know that I would look too deep into that. Not yet, anyways. I don't know that they're going to hit as many home runs as they did last year, but there's guys on this team that are going to hit double digit home runs. I don't know that you have a Blake Wright or a Billy Amick or a Max Wagner, somebody that's going to go out and hit 20 plus. But I think you got a bunch of guys that can hit 9, 10, 11 and kind of make up for some of those loss of home runs that they lost from last year. But like I think I said this last week too. I think I said last year going into the season, I didn't think they'd hit as many home runs. They hit way more than I thought they would. So we'll see how that plays out once they get back home. But um, I just I'm not too worried about that. I think the home runs will come. I am much more pleased with the plate discipline and hitting the all fields and going trying to go the other way when the situation calls for it instead of sitting there swinging for the fences every time. I'm a much bigger fan of that type of approach instead of playing station to station and waiting on the long ball like we saw Clemson do under Monty Lee. It gets frustrating to watch sometimes when the team's relying heavily on putting up a crooked number once or twice during a game. I'd much rather be, like you just said, competitive at bats. And you hit on it. There were a bunch of them over the weekend where they were just fouling off pitch after pitch after pitch, and there were 8, 9, 10 pitch at bats. I'm a big fan of that kind of plate discipline, and I was happy to see it.
I don't know that they need to hit as many home runs this year as they did last year. If you're playing like that and you're having those competitive at bats, I think they will. I think they'll come, like you said, but I don't think it's going to be as necessary if they're playing well enough to not have to come back from being down 6, 7, 8 runs, however, like they did how many times last year. And if you already have I say that we already have one comeback win on the weekend. So I don't know, maybe that'll be a thing again. But I don't know that you're gonna need it if you have people that are so consistent at getting on base, like a Dom Listy.
Yeah, without if they don't hit as much as many home runs as they did last season, I tend to lean towards thinking they won't be able to rely on being able to come back as many times as they did
Right.
this year because you won't be able to score runs in chunks that way. So you don't want to find yourselves down in the hole too very often. But we've already seen them do it once. They weren't able to do it Sunday, but they got you get down in an early 7-0 hole like that, man. It's hard to climb back out of that sometimes. But yeah, I'm like you. I'm not too worried about the lack of home runs yet. I know a guy like Dominic Listy's not going to go out and hit a bunch of home runs. But I fully expect Luke Gaffney's going to be a double-digit home run guy. I expect Canarella's going to hit double digits. I expect Pano's going to hit double digits. Same thing with Colin Priest and Jake Gerald. I just think there's some pop in that lineup, even though there might not be one guy that hits 20, 22 home runs.
And there were a couple moments this weekend too where I thought that somebody was about to crush a ball. Like I think they were really close a few times. I was like, "Oh, it's out." And then, obviously it wasn't. But I think it's coming. I think this weekend in particular, we have a good opportunity to start seeing. I would be shocked if we didn't see a home run this weekend. I really would be. What do you think?
Yeah, I tend to think they'll start coming a little bit once they get back to playing in the friendly confines of Doug Kingsmore. Maybe I haven't looked what the forecast is supposed to be this weekend, but if it's really cold, maybe you don't see as many. But if it warms up a little bit, maybe the ball will jump off the bat a little bit. But um, that's a good segue to start looking ahead to this weekend. 4 games in 3 days. They play 1 on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. We already know Aiden Canuck's going Friday, and Ethan Darden's going into first game Saturday, and LeGuernic's going into game Sunday. As we touched on earlier, you get that TBA for the second game on Sunday to be announced. No matter who starts, it might be one of those bullpen type deals, but this is a opportunity for maybe the coaching staff to get. You're playing North Carolina A&T and VCU. It's not the level of competition you saw that first weekend. If you got some guys that are, still right there, like we didn't see Michael Gillen last weekend. He's dealing with a sore back. If he's kind of right there on the line, this is a weekend where you don't have to push him to be back. You just want him to be back by next weekend. And if they're dealing with if they have the same number of pitchers available this weekend as they did last weekend, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that bullpen, considering some of these starters are still going to be on pitch counts.
Exactly. And I think that's a whole nother thing that people aren't looking into is that the starters were all on pitch counts this weekend too.
Strict pitch counts.
And I don't know how long those last. When will they be off those?
They'll increase every week. They started out actually a little bit higher than I was anticipating. I think Connacht got close to 70, maybe. Oh, I got it right here. Let's see. Oh, no, I do not have it right here. But I think he was up in the 60, 70 range. I think they all to start, or at least I think he and Darden were. So they're not far off. I think they'll pretty much be unleashed once you get to South Carolina. I mean, for the most part anyways, but that is another factor here. When your starters can't go as deep, you got to rely on more relievers, and then it kind of eats up your bullpen a little bit quicker than it normally would have.
Sure, especially when you're playing 4 games in 3 days. I'm interested to see how they navigate that. Interested to see if we see guys that we didn't see last weekend, like I don't know, a Hudson Lee or somebody like that we saw warming up and never went in. Do they get shots, or are they trying to nail down who it's actually gonna be every week? I don't know. It's gonna be interesting.
Somebody's asking about Talon Bell, and the last time I asked Eric Bakich about that, it sounded like it was gonna be a few weeks. He did throw in one of the scrimmages I was at. He only threw an inning, but he wasn't even throwing in the 90, so he was not going full out. Did strike out 2 of the 3 hitters he faced. So once they do get him back, he is going to be somebody that should be able to help them. But I wouldn't expect to see him not this weekend for sure. I I've kind of been thinking maybe about a start of ACC play, but that's just me, kind of trying to read between the lines and what Coach Backett said when he was asked about it a couple of weeks ago. Would be good to have him back. Would be good to have a Michael Gillen back. I haven't really heard anything about Hudson Lee that you just mentioned. The transfer from Wake Forest. Did see him doing some things in the bullpen the other day. But like you said, we didn't see him. And when you're already down a couple of guys like Dane Moeller and golly, I'm forgetting his name, the other transfer from one of the smaller in-state schools that also had to have Tommy John. But every arm you have, you need him.
Certainly do. And I think we're going to see pretty quick in the next few weeks who they're going to rely on to fill that. And it's going to be interesting. Excited to see the lineups this weekend. It's going to be fun.
Probably a good thing they got that game, that midweek game was postponed. Otherwise you're looking at 5 games in 4 days.
See, I kind of disagree with you there because I think they would have liked to probably get the taste of the Ole Miss game out of their mouth sooner.
That's the only downside.
That.
That's the only downside to it being postponed. They would much rather get out there and get that, like you said, sour taste out of their mouths. I'm just talking about straight from a pitching perspective. You don't have to burn through some guys and worry about playing 5 games in 4 days.
JP, you're thinking like a coach. I'm thinking like a player. I am.
I absolutely agree, though, that the players would probably rather have played Wednesday and got right back at it and not let that Ole Miss performance, kind of stew too long. That's the way I would have felt as a player.
That means you do get your home opener Friday night. It's going to be pretty fun. You're not playing a midweek game the first time. Going to have a big turnout, I hope. It's going to be a good one.
And if you are going, Saturday's ticket gets you in for both games. 1 ticket, both games. Sunday's ticket gets you in for both games. The early game is A&T. He's going to play VCU at 10 o'clock. That's the only game all weekend Clemson's not involved in. No video for that game. All the other games streamed on their regular channel, ACC Network Extra, so you don't have to pay extra for any streaming service this weekend. But home opener Friday night. Again, you're going to play VCU twice. You're going to play North Carolina A&T twice. It's a good time to get some younger guys a little bit more experience and get well after that Ole Miss loss. I'm thinking 4-0. Straight sweep.
I think 4-0 as well.
I like it.
I was going to try to disagree with you on that one, but no, I think it's a sweep. I think it's great for morale. I think knowing what you need to improve on after last week and then playing this kind of competition, I think it's a really good combination for moving forward because now you've had a taste of really intense competition and you can go from there.
They might have to outscore them a game or two, if they don't have a couple of these pitchers back yet, but I think they're certainly capable of doing that. And there's obviously, it's baseball, anything can happen on any given day, but there's a distinct disparity in talent when it comes to Clemson and these 2 other teams. This is a weekend they should sweep through. I fully expect them to do it. Although I'd settle for 3-1, but I'm shooting for 4-0.
Win the weekend.
That's right. As always, we appreciate everybody that tuned in tonight. I want to thank Ashby for doing this with me. You're going to be there. You're going to be there all weekend, right?
I'll be there Friday.
No, it's not. Oh, that's right. That is right. Friday, not Saturday. That's right. You're not going to be there Sunday either?
I'll be there Sunday. I'll be there Friday and Sunday.
Friday and Sunday.
I'll hold it down.
JP's staying home this weekend. Appreciate everybody that tuned in. Appreciate our sponsor, Mission Roofing. Give them a call. They take care of all your roofing needs in the upstate. located right there in TR, Travelers Rest. Phone number scrolling across the bottom of the screen. We will be right back here next Thursday, 7 p.m. For Ashby Nixon, I'm JP. See y'all next time.